Hi, everybody. Welcome to NurseDeck. I am Brianna, and today I am joined with Dr. Danielle McCamey from Virginia. NurseDeck, as you know, is a collaborative social space for nurses to come together to share resources, guidelines, support, camaraderie, horror stories, and humor. And we are doing an interview series to highlight different nurses in our field and the work that they're doing to promote nursing. So without further ado, I am joined today by Dr. Danielle McCamey, who has an extensive background in critical care nursing. She currently works as a chief advanced practice provider in the Preanesthesia testing unit and is also a senior advanced practitioner in the surgical intensive care unit. Dr. McCamey is the founder, CEO, and president of DNPs of Color, which you refer to as docs. Is that right? Love that. And she was inspired to create docs to have a community for nurses of color to elevate themselves, the nursing profession, and various communities through the richness of diversity. And finally, Dr. McCamey, her dissertation for her DNP focused on palliative care. So we're going to jump into that as well. So welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Awesome. Thank you for the invitation to be here. Really appreciate it.
Great. We always like to start at the beginning because I feel like nurses always have a great story with how they get started in nursing. So what led you to nursing?
Yes. So my story begins with my mom being my inspiration for delving into the nursing profession. She did home health nursing.
Okay.
And she would take me along her
Oh,
patient
no way.
environment. It was
I love
really
it.
fun. And the patients enjoyed seeing, her little daughter being toted around. I would have my little nurse purse, but actual medical bag with my plastic stethoscope, and I would act like I'm listening to the heart and lungs. So they would humor me.
Yes.
But most of the time, my mom set me up in a little corner with my coloring books and crayons to just spend my time in the corner. But even though it looked like I was coloring, I was actually intently watching her care for these folks and just most importantly, seeing how much of an impact she had on their recovery or just made their day so much more brighter by the end of her session with them. So
I can just picture that. I love it.
Yes.
That's awesome. So you were a community health nurse from
from the beginning,
way back in the day.
Yeah. So she encouraged me because I would express to her, Mom, I want to do what you do. I want to be like you. So she would encourage me. Absolutely. You can do what I do and more. And so throughout my life, she continued to expose me to different aspects of the healthcare by encouraging me to volunteer. Everyone has to do the obligatory candy striper stuff and learning how to do first aid. And then I dabbled in EMT, some EMT work when I was in college. So just always kind of kept a finger on the care of people.
Yeah.
Throughout their healthcare continuum. So.
Gotcha. I love it. Tell us, I know you're a member of various boards, and one of the ones that jumped out to me was you're a fellow of the American College of Physicians, which is unusual to see for someone with a nursing background. Can you explain to nurses that are watching and listening what that means?
Yes, absolutely. Most professional organizations have a distinction or designation called fellow. And fellow is basically recognition that you've demonstrated a certain level of excellence, dedication, knowledge, and expertise within that particular field that organization represents. And the FCCP is the fellow of the American College of Chest Physicians, which is a physician-oriented organization that focuses on chest medicine, so lung disease, chest disease. I mean, the gamut goes on. And critical care is how I got involved from my colleagues within the surgical critical care service. We had a lot of individuals that were members of CHEST. It's called CHEST for short. And I got plugged in early in my career and had the opportunity to join committees, present at different of the annual conferences and slowly making my way, kind of my elevating my voice within that organization. And CHEST is unique because they make space for nurses, nurse practitioners, respiratory
Yeah,
therapists. So
that's
they're very
powerful.
intentional about making space and offering opportunity to elevate in that space. So I've been a member of CHEST for a long time,
Yeah.
gosh, probably since 2015. And throughout that have made some headway in creating space and had the opportunity to be voted in as the vice chair of the
Wow.
National Palliative Care Steering Committee. And now most recently, I'm the chair of that committee.
That's
So with the
awesome.
FCCP, it just signifies that you've given a certain level of commitment to the
Mhm.
organization, and also to, um, in this instance, chest medicine,
Mhm.
for me, critical care. And there's an application process. There's lots of behind the scene things that you have to fulfill in order to
Mhm.
even be considered. And
Right.
also want to encourage nurses out there to look in your respective nursing organization to see if they have a fellow
Yeah.
opportunity for you to apply, because it sets you apart and it shows that you have a level of commitment to that
Yeah.
profession.
Yeah. And I think anywhere that we can amplify nurses' voices at the table, is
Absolutely.
so important right now. So
Yes.
it is just a matter of going out there and trying to find, like you said, those opportunities because they exist. But I think people sometimes see the College of Physicians like, oh, that's not for me, but
Oh, yeah,
you
absolutely.
never
That
know.
was my impression too, till once I finally got an opportunity to get in, I was like, "Oh, okay. It's comfortable here. I can make some
Yeah.
waves here."
Right. And I think talk a little bit about just being a part of professional organizations in general, outside of the very busy working lives that I think most nurses have right now. Why add one more thing to your plate with a professional organization?
Yeah, I didn't realize the value of professional organizations, and I say until like yesterday years old.
Yeah.
It's like when you're in school, you're like, you join at the student rate and you get all the emails and stuff.
Right.
But now that I've evolved in my career and I've had the opportunity to experience different aspects of healthcare, from being bedside nurse to being advanced practice to um, being a CEO of a nonprofit that involves healthcare, diversifying
Mhm.
healthcare professions, you see different levels in which you need to be represented. And a
Mhm.
lot of the nursing organizations help give that voice because they have
Yeah.
a membership that supports the mission, the vision,
Right.
and whatever values that organization is committed to. So, it's a lot of money, but it's also an investment in yourself as a professional, and
Yeah.
also in our profession success as a whole.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's worth the investment. You just have to pick and choose the one that represents your clinical practice and your own personal
Right.
mission and values the best.
Yeah. I would argue too, maybe it's a little bit of like professional self-care because I think sometimes when you're around a lot of nurses that are equally as burned out as you are, being in a space where people are actually looking to talk about your profession in a positive way and the future of it and
Yes,
where it's headed, I think
absolutely.
that's, especially now, an invaluable place to put yourself in and people to surround
Definitely.
yourself with.
That's a good perspective as well.
Yeah. Tell us, I see in your bio that you enjoy being a mentor to nurses.
Yes.
As I am assuming from being in preceptorship positions that you have to have a certain amount of leadership interest to do that. Can you speak of who you are as a leader or what's important to you as a leader?
Oh my gosh. I truly started embracing being a leader again yesterday years old. Not really. But I've always had some leadership aspects of myself throughout my life. And the leadership style that I ascribe to is one that's, I love being authentic. So, if I'm having a good day, yay. If I'm having a bad day, yeah, we're going
Hmm.
to talk about it. I love empowering others. So I love seeing people's potential
Yeah.
and tapping it and just giving them the tools and the confidence and the encouragement to unlock it for themselves, so that they can either
Hmm.
lead or find their path along their particular mission and purpose. So I love being connected. I love being authentic. I love being I don't want to say in the trenches, but I love being
Yeah.
amongst the folks that I'm leading And so that there's not ever any doubt on my capabilities of, hey, I can, you know, uh, put someone on the bedpan with the best of them,
Right.
or, I can lead teams and create projects, policies, and
Yeah.
procedures. But I like to keep the I guess the hierarchy flat so that everyone has a
Yeah.
shared voice and feels validated in their experience as we move forward, as I'm leading the group. So it's
Mm.
really important for me for it to be collaborative.
Yeah, I love that. Um, so tell us, I see your little DOC pin that you have there. Tell us about this organization that you created. It sounds incredible. What inspired you to create it? What needs do you see that it fills? Anything you wanna, yeah, tell us all
Yes. Oh
about
my gosh. Yes, my little lapel pin.
it.
It's for DNPs of Color, which is we are a 501c3 nursing nonprofit organization, and our mission is to serve DNPs of Color through networking, mentorship, and advocacy to increase diversity in doctoral studies, clinical practice, and leadership. And that's a mouthful,
Yeah.
but the overall vision is to simply diversify nursing from the doctorate of nursing practice
Mhm.
realm. And DNPs of Color is my passion, and I created during my own doctoral experience. I went to predominantly white institution, and I was at the time the only Black woman in my cohort.
Mhm.
And I came with the lived experience of being a Black woman in America. And then you add on the layer of growing up in a single parent family household. And then you add on the layer of being the first in your family, getting your doctorate, and what does that mean, and
Right.
all the different layers of pressure that you put on yourself to be
Yeah.
successful, to prove yourself in that space, that you're worthy of being in that space.
Yeah.
And so I really wanted community that had similar lived experiences that we can share and encourage each other. And
Mhm.
so I couldn't really find the specific niche of nurses of color getting their DNP. I was very
Right.
specific.
Yeah.
And so I created a Facebook group just for the sake of like, let's just vent and like support each other,
Yeah.
kumbaya, all the things. And then it grew beyond my expectation.
Yeah, I bet.
So many people came
Yeah.
with similar experiences, similar desire for community. Not saying that my institution didn't offer me any support. I had a wonderful experience during my
Mhm.
doctoral studies, but I just had a different lived experience that I needed additional
Yeah.
support that wasn't current in that particular institution. And so fast forward to today. We've been operational since May 2020. Our community's grown to nearly 1,800 folks in our private Facebook and LinkedIn community. And we
Wow.
just hosted our first virtual conference back in October, which was a huge hit. I was only expecting 60 people. We had over 200 people register,
Wow.
which was absolutely amazing.
That's
We had the
awesome.
keynote done by Dr. Kenya Beard, which was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But just seeing the energy around the conference validated for me the
Mhm.
need for this space, for this group of nursing professionals.
Yeah.
And a lot of the feedback we got from the conference was that it was a safe space. They felt validated, they felt seen, they were
Mhm.
inspired because they saw other DMPs of color presenting and sharing their professional stories.
Mm.
They finally felt like they belonged in a professional
Yeah.
space that elevated and represented their voice and their
Yeah.
lived experience. So it was amazing. Like the
That's
energy,
incredible.
I just overflow when I think about it and just
Yeah.
excited about our possibilities.
Can tell your whole being just lit up. So, but that's, I mean, it speaks to the power of being with people that truly understand, like, the path you're walking in life, and
Absolutely.
it's not to say, like, anything's, I mean, you put it well, I don't need to paraphrase it. I think that's incredible, and just the amount of membership that you've seen, like, what a reflection that is of the work that you put into it. That's amazing. Why do you think it's so important? I think a lot of nurses, especially ones that are feeling burnt out at the bedside,
Mhm.
often pursue higher degrees or advanced practitioner degrees. Why do you think it's so important for nurses of color in particular to pursue advanced practice degrees?
Well, I mean, we've all, I guess, have gotten a wake up call since the murder of George Floyd about the importance of diversifying
Yeah.
everything,
Mhm.
healthcare, because that's where we are. And, there's countless literature that supports how diversifying healthcare professions helps improve patient outcomes, especially
Yeah.
those from communities of color, because we can speak to the lived experience, but there's also a certain level of rapport that patients feel when
Hmm.
they see folks that represent their
Yeah.
community. And so I think that it's important that um, we make a concerted effort, that we're intentional and deliberate about committing to diversity, equity, inclusion,
Hmm.
and anti-racism in nursing and beyond in healthcare, because it directly impacts our patients, and that's why we're in this. That's why we came to this business, is to
Right.
serve folks and their needs and help them get better and support them throughout the continuum of life. So, committing to diversifying nursing is so important. And getting advanced degrees helps us get different seats at different tables. When
Hmm.
you have an advanced degree, you begin to infiltrate the provider realm. So those that are creating the assessments and the plans
Yes.
and that are treating the patients. And our focus is having your doctorate. And when you have your terminal degree, that's the highest level of education you can get within your particular specialty. So
Hmm.
again, another layer of seats. So now you're sitting with
Yeah.
the executives and those that makes the
Right.
policies and the procedures that influence the structures that are at play, that formulate the insurance
Right.
policies, that formulate the care that we can give as providers, that influence the nurses at the bedside.
Yes.
So getting the advanced degrees elevates our voice and gets us at different seats at different tables to bring that diversity of thought, the diversity of just being from that community, so we get
Right.
that understanding and how we can best serve the communities.
Absolutely. I think that's such a common venting point of bedside nurses, is like the people making the decisions that affect us are hundreds of floors
Exactly.
above us, and they don't give a crap about what we're going through,
Yes.
So to know that
Yes.
you have actual people that you trust and have relationships with, advocating on your behalf
Absolutely.
I mean, that's how healthcare will be changed, in my opinion. So
Mhm.
that was a great explanation. COVID-19 in particular, I think, shone a huge light. You mentioned George Floyd too. I mean, 2020 was a year full of lots of pain points.
Yeah.
um, but COVID-19 in particular shone a big light on the inequities and disparities in medicine. How can nurses best advocate for their patients of color, and what challenges do you think are the biggest to overcome now that we have generated some awareness? What can we do about it?
Yeah, that's a layered question. We at our conference, we had a panel discussion about what can we start doing.
Mm,
And the point that I made at that particular panel discussion was, first, working with yourself, doing a lot of self-reflection on your own perspectives and how you practice nursing,
mhm.
advanced practice, and looking at where implicit bias or racism or health inequities or inequities, period, that you've adopted as your own kind of norm, your own kind
Right.
of nursing professional patterns, and
Hmm.
start working on changing that, so that you can get a broader, more inclusive perspective in how you care for patients, how you see patients, how you um, can check your biases when a patient presents to you
Right.
with high blood pressure, they didn't fill their medications, and they
Right.
belong to a community of color, but also understanding the structure that kind of
Yeah.
got them to that place. So
Right.
having some sort of understanding to help you, I want to say empathize, but have a broader perspective of what things
Right.
that person had to go through to get to your clinical
Right.
doorstep.
Right.
So beginning with self, and then if you see something, say something. I think
Yes.
now, with 2020 opening up, racism is here, everyone.
Hmm.
It's allowed for more opportunity to have conversations about racism, and how it's
Right.
ingrained in our system and structure. So people are feeling a little bit more confident with when they see something, that they say something. So feeling
Yeah.
empowered to advocate, just, you know, calling out any inequities or any racist behaviors or
Right.
things that raise question. And again, also being part of professional organizations that are
Yeah.
committing to doing the work of advancing health equity and
Yeah.
reducing the health disparities and racial inequities.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well said. Um, Tell us, we're going to switch gears a little bit here, and talk about palliative care, which you've done so much work in, and specifically with intensive care patients, and specifically in neurology units, and neurointensive care units. Speak to us about the roadblocks that still exist for both patients and practitioners when it comes to utilizing a branch of medicine that could help so much.
Oh my gosh, yes, and I hear your pain in your voice when you share about the roadblocks because that's legit. I think when I was in the midst of my dissertation project, the huge thing was just education. We
Mhm.
literally took it down to just defining palliative care with
Yeah,
everyone and
right.
expanding their viewpoint on it. We can work together for the
Mhm.
same goal of
Right,
increasing positive patient outcomes and patient and family satisfaction and making
right,
sure that they don't have to suffer through
right.
whatever critical illness, whether it be terminal or temporary, or,
Mhm,
we're just only addressing one thing, pain or not, there's so much richness that having palliative care could bring
mhm.
to, um, you know, for my specialty, critical care, that is such an
Yeah.
untapped resource. So, in my particular institution, they were able to create a palliative care team that focused on intensive care, which was super helpful,
Mhm.
and just continuous education about the impact and hearing patients and families report back saying, having the palliative care team
Yes,
helped me to communicate this, or I was able to get this.
right.
But the barrier still exists because the stigma associated with it, which I'm sure you're aware of as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so many patients just are like, "They're writing me off. That's it." Like, "Call the funeral home," and it's it's
Yes.
like, "No, there's a thing called quality of life, and we want you to
Yes.
have it." Like,
Yes,
you're still with us.
absolutely.
But, yeah, I can only imagine in such an intense environment as intensive care, obviously, and then layering that in a way that people can still be receptive to it.
Mhm.
That's a huge challenge, but it's such a necessary one to overcome.
Mhm.
Um, Talking a little bit about burnout in nurses, I think we've gone beyond burnout to like the moral injury level.
Yes.
Um, and nurses are just exhausted on spiritual, emotional, mental, physical, all
Yes.
the levels. The value of community to help heal us. Can you talk a little bit about, the community that you created, or just the feeling of community in general, whether it's like through sites like ours that are virtual, or like belly
Mhm.
to belly communities, in helping to revive us or keep us in the profession?
Mhm. Yeah, I think we as humans we're communal beings at
Yeah.
baseline, and I think one of the benefits that came out of 2020 was showing how limitless we can be in our abilities to connect, and
Mhm.
having the virtual platforms to create different spaces for people to decompress and just be where they are, and I
Yeah.
think that helped create I guess, an expanded way, especially within nursing and us nurses, to find ways to communicate, to um, to help ourselves, help heal ourselves. And then also more things that came out of 2020 is the recognition around the importance of mental health and
Mhm.
balance. So I think that
Right.
has really shaken a lot of professions, speaking specifically to nursing, to really start focusing on care of the nurse. I mean, there's
Mhm.
been, the future of nursing 2020, 2030 mentioned specifically focusing on the well-being and care of the nurse and
Right.
our mental and mind, body, and soul, which I think is huge because
Yeah.
for so long, traditionally, we've always been the giver, the caregiver, the giver, 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 and no one
Right.
really took the time to see, okay, well, let's check on the caregiver to see if they're
Yeah.
comfortable.
Right.
So I think changing that cultural lens that we've always had, like, we nurses, we give and give, we care, 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 to that we're reflecting on being more intentional about self-care and mindfulness. And what does that mean for each individual? I think it's important, and allowing people to have that space. If you
Yeah.
need, we used to joke when I was at the bedside, I'm going to take a mental health day tomorrow. So
Right. Right.
But truly starting to embrace that, like if you need a mental health
Yeah.
day, like I want you to show up as your best self. And I tell my staff that I lead now. I'm like, if you're not well, mind, body,
Right.
or soul, you're no good to us and you're no good to
Right.
yourself. And most importantly, you're no good to the patients.
Yeah. Right.
So yeah.
Do you feel nurses, like you were saying when you were talking to your own staff, like how it kind of used to be a joke, like wink, wink, I'm going to go, like go out to lunch with my friends or whatever. But now I think people say they need a mental health day. Do you feel like ears are perking up in a different way than they did, even 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, I think definitely more so now than ever before. Because when people say they need a mental health break, they literally
Right.
need a mental health break. And I think
Yeah.
having leaders and colleagues that foster an environment to support folks to share that before people get to a breaking point is very important.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Um, Tell us about this is a big question, but the future of nursing, like a lot of these interviews that we've done, I get the sense of a feeling of momentum that's building, especially with nurses and nursing leaders. And I love that we've touched on, having a voice at the table on many different, as you said, realms, which like kind of reminds me of Game of Thrones, but it kind of feels like that out there. Like
I mean,
definitely dragons and um, but how do you see nurses as shaping healthcare in the future? I mean, however that speaks to you in this moment.
oh my gosh. I think again, referencing 2020, if
Yeah.
folks didn't realize the importance of the nurse, then I don't know where they were living.
Yeah.
But I think we as nurses truly, and I hope that we do, and I feel like that we are grasping hold of the opportunity of getting everyone's attention. Like, hey, nurses, we run health systems. We are
Yeah.
healthcare. Like we are
There's a lot of
literally,
us.
yeah,
Yeah.
we are literally the foundation
Hmm.
of health, wellness, healthcare, medicine,
Yeah.
however you want to call it. So I hope that we feel empowered to truly capitalize on this moment that everyone's looking at us like, where are the nurses?
Yeah.
To invest in ourselves, education wise, to reinvent nursing and what does that look like? A lot of folks are being
Yeah.
innovative with starting their own clinical practices and doing more collaborative work and partnering with different organizations to expand the lens and how we impact nursing practice, medicine.
Mhm.
So I hope that we truly use this time to be innovative, creative, and really change nursing into
Yeah.
something different, with some
Yeah.
traditional elements, but something that can be a life force to project us toward, which we always say the ultimate goal is health equity for everyone.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Um, Tell me how a site like us, that we're a relatively new site, how can we support BIPOC patients, nurses, practitioners, going forward? What are the best ways that we can do that?
Yeah, NurseDeck, another example of creating community for nursing as how it is. I mean, there's tons of wonderful things. I just recently joined about a couple weeks ago, so I've just been kind of dabbling along, but
Yeah.
I think it's a wonderful platform where nurses can come to share stories. I mean, I've seen
Hmm.
a variety of stories, good, bad, ugly, wonderful, trials, triumph. But this is the voice that folks need to see about, the things that we encounter as nurses, that
Yeah.
can be served as a source of inspiration, um, motivation,
Hmm.
encouragement. So I think a community like NurseDeck is important. Again, folks that identify, and I'll speak to my own experience, me identifying as a Black woman
Hmm.
in America, the main thing was just finding spaces that validated my existence. Because a lot of
Right.
times I don't feel validated or I'm invisible.
Yeah.
So I think Nurse Deck has an opportunity to create space for a diversity of thought, a diversity group of folks, whatever
Hmm.
that looks like, and helping people feel seen in their own respective lived experiences and how they want to express that. And I do think that that's kind of how the community is starting to evolve now, is the
Yeah.
freedom of the expression and creating the genuine connections.
Right. Right. So you said you've dabbled a little bit. Have you been on, we have like a social kind of offshoot of our main site that's, kind of like a social media, in real time, you can chit chat with people. And one of the features we have on there is you can make groups. So we're trying to encourage people, like you said, you said a phrase before that I wrote down, to be where you are. I just think that is so like succinct and perfect. And it's so simple, but it's so powerful for people to be surrounded by voices that they can relate to and that are authentic and going through the good, the bad, and the ugly. So that's what we're trying to encourage, is trying to get people to join and to lead those groups. So I think you've done an awesome job of explaining why authenticity in leadership is so valuable, and makes you relatable as a nurse, being a nurse that people want to follow.
Yes.
Rather than just like nod their head along, like, I got like 8 million things to do. Let me get back to it.
Seriously.
So I think, yeah, you did a beautiful job of explaining that in a way that draws people in. We want nurses to turn towards each other right now,
Yes.
away from each other. We have enough divisiveness going on. So, is there any other things that you would like to touch on today? I think you're going to say certain words and phrases that nurses are going to perk their ears up at and be excited about. So I know they can find you on LinkedIn.
Yes, they can find
And
me
your
on LinkedIn.
DOC group, your doc group, is that just, what's the website for that people can find you on?
Yeah, so I usually like to close with just a word of encouragement, and then I'll put
Yeah,
DNPs of Color. So
please.
I always like to encourage folks, don't let your current circumstances define you, but use it as an opportunity to refine you,
Oh, I
and
love that.
ensure that it's aligned with your own mission, passion, vision for your life. So stay
Love it.
committed to that. So that's my closer. And
I
then,
love it.
yes, please follow DNPs of Color. We are on all the major social media outlets.
Okay.
Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and our handle is at DNPs of Color. Our
Okay.
website is www.dnpsofcolor.org. So if you
Okay.
just Google DNPs of Color, you'll find us.
You'll find all the little satellites. All right.
Yes,
Awesome.
and I'm also on social media for folks that want to follow me. I'm not much of a tweeter, but I'm on there.
Okay.
And but I'm an Instagrammer, so
All
please come
right.
follow me on Instagram, and it's
Good.
at Dr. McCamey.
Awesome. Love it. Thank you so much for all your time today
Thank you.
and giving us so many wonderful ideas. I love like the positivity, and just the genuineness that you spoke with today. So hopefully everybody will get their little fingers working and,
Yes.
and find you on the interwebs.
Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.